Well, so let me pull up this next story from the Daily Mail. It's actually just a meme. Elon Musk hints he's shifted to the right over the last 14 years. No, Daily Mail. Nope. That is not what he's saying. It's hilarious. As liberals morphed into woke progressives. He is not saying he shifted to the right. He's quite literally saying he has not moved at all. In this image, I believe it's a meme from Colin Wright.
That's correct,
right?
yeah.
That's congratulations, Colin.
Very cool.
He posted a meme of me and now a meme of you. It is just a winning week for us. In 2008, you can see there's the right-wing conservatives, the left-wing liberals, and there's me, left of center. And it says, my fellow liberal. In 2012, the left started moving way further left, and now me was closer to the center because left and right were spreading further apart. By 2021, me, the character in the comic, has stayed in the exact same place. But the left has gone so far left that me is now closer to conservative. And you know what's funny? Elon Musk posted that. I always mix the next word up in Elon Musk. Elon Musk posted that, and I said, that perfectly explains this show and me. We are not conservatives. We have always been, well, Seamus is conservative, for sure.
Conservative, definitely.
Same. But I mean, like, here, like me personally and, you know, the stuff I've been working on, you know, I got started covering news and media with Occupy Wall Street. I was politically active, writing punk music and protesting war with all these liberals, voting for Obama in 2008. And then throughout the next, you know, Bernie Sanders, he was opposed to immigration. He said open borders was a Koch brothers proposal. He wanted to help the working class. Said gun rights was an urban versus rural issue. And I'm like, I like this guy. He's been consistent. He's standing up for these things. I can respect that. And then Bernie decided to run along with the left, as did so many other personalities, and they sacrificed any sense of principle and conviction for tribe. So here I am standing in the same place, and now they're like, you're right wing. And I'm like, that's exactly my point. So you've got this memes posted, and this dude, this guy Max, verified Twitter user, posts it and says, the right literally tried to overthrow the government. The left nominated Joe Biden. And I'm like, you're proving the point. Nearly every single right-wing person condemned what happened on January 6th, said it was wrong. Some of those prominent right-wing individuals all said the violence was a big mistake and they shouldn't have done it. You didn't just elect Joe Biden. You are pushing for strange, secret sexual conversations among children. You have now, there's outright leftist policy, like Bernie Sanders wants 20% of corporations to be owned by the workers. And you have, my friends, the Green New Deal. This is what I referenced. If you look at my videos, it was back in 2018, I think, when AOC was talking about the Green New Deal, I said, fantastic. I love the idea. The government should be taking this tax money and investing in wind farms, you know, solar energy, roads, bridges. Let's get the infrastructure built back up because these bridges are crumbling. We can't live this way. AOC is finally about to announce the Green New Deal. And I'm like, let's see it. And she goes, free healthcare for black people. And I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. All right, you want to have a conversation about racial issues and you know, they say people of color. I'm down, but what does this have to do with wind farms? So here I am actually looking at environmental policy. Instead, what do we get? Critical race theory. So I'm not...
Take it away, Seamus.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, this is something we see the left doing constantly. You guys all know my theory. Leftism is just a word that we give to social decay. Things change very quickly when they're breaking down. So you demolish a building, it falls a lot more quickly than it took to put the thing together in the first place. Of course, there are a lot of people who are considered to be on the left who are now looked at as right-wing figures. And not only that, but far-right figures. Now, I'm only 27 years old, and yet I am old enough to remember when you had to be conservative in order to be considered far-right. Now you can be a pretty middle-of-the-road moderate type or even a soft liberal and be considered far-right.
I can straight up be like, well, I, for one, think we need a progressive tax and universal basic health care. And they're like, he's far-right!
He's far-right.
Well, it's just a pejorative now. It's just a label like anything else to put you down, call you a racist, far-right. And then people hope after the first label, you don't read about what you're actually saying.
I like alt-right, because like, what is that? Is that up? Is alt-right actually down?
It's the new Nazi.
You can only have one right.
Was the kind of during Trump was
alternative
the alt
rock.
And the alt-right had a lot in common with the woke left in terms of their racial ideologies.
So racism.
In fact, that's actually how the alt-right explained it in many circumstances, that it was actually expressed to me that the alt-right is basically Black Lives Matter for white people.
Yeah, that white purity movement.
Yes.
It is exactly
no. White purity? That's a bit much. What they were
it's
literally
pride.
No.
White pride.
What they were literally
purity,
saying was
it's okay to be white. That
you
kind of stuff.
you can accuse them of secretly believing whatever they want. What many of these guys were publicly saying was white rights.
Right.
They were like, all we're trying to do is make sure that we have equal rights. And look, you can call them liars, but that's what they were publicly stating.
I had a lot of moderate minds. I'd see a lot of white purity stuff that was really annoying.
That's totally different.
It was
that's white purity
racist
stuff.
Yeah, but that's I think where the alt-right came from is they thought that was this dangerous white racist movement. But the Black Lives Matter is very similar. I'm not going to say the exact same thing, but it's also like a race movement.
The general idea, which allowed the like literal neo-Nazis to recruit, was that they were going to young white men who were frustrated for a variety of reasons, couldn't find work. And they were saying, hey, do you see all those memes, all those news stories about how white people are bad and evil? Doesn't that frustrate you and make you angry? Join us. And they would say, okay, my grievance has now been addressed.
Yeah, and it'd be a normal guy would be like, okay, fine. And then he'd make a post that would say, it's okay to be white. And you'd be like, and then they'd be like, oh, he's indicating racism. This is a racist movement.
And then the left, there's this kind of push on both sides. And then, you make this symbol, this firefighter made, and now he's a white national. And there was this whole media circus behind all of it. That took, I'm sure there were plenty of, white supremacist fringes in that movement, but the vast majority of them were probably just guys saying, I'm a straight white guy, what's wrong with me? And then you get this pushback from the left saying you're this, that, and the other thing, and you make them more extreme because you're continually trying to one-up each other.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at how hard the left has to reach and grasp at straws in order to conjure up any kind of narrative of America being a white supremacist country, basically all the hate crime narratives we hear end up being completely false upon further investigation. They don't hold up to the slightest scrutiny. Every single time they accuse someone of being racism, it's because they dog whistled a dog whistle, which was also a dog whistle that could possibly have some racist meaning behind that only they could hear, and somehow only left-wing people
but also
end up hearing.
You would hear things like Asian hate, and then you would look further and it was a black guy with an Asian girl, black guy, black, and then you watched in the media that the race, which was just part of, as being an editor, you would ask their age and normally their race just started to vanish. So if it was a group of 5 black kids, it would just say 5 people. If it was 5 white men doing something to somebody else, you'd see something. Especially if it was a white guy going after an Asian, they would always show that it was a white guy.
Yeah.
And then I found out that it was a lot of others.
Even more insidious. I'm not sure if y'all remember a couple of years ago, there was a group of black young adults who kidnapped a white young adult with autism and tortured him for days. And it was a consistent trend that in media, they were referred to as kids and he was referred to as a man.
Right.
Were they
even though they were all over the age of 18.
Oh, that's weird.
Yep. Because, and it's the same thing, whenever you have any kind of racial narrative, if the white person is the victim and they're attacked by another minority group or a minority group, then the race is left out of it. But if there's a minority being attacked by a white person, of course the racial identity is front and center. Ethnic identity is front and center in the reporting.
It feels like there's a very small minority of vocal racists that were like white supremacist racists that use social media to amplify it. And then there's a very small minority of black supremacists, these people that are like trying to run the black racist movement. And we're caught in the middle. Most people are, and they're like, what in the hell? But then it starts to seep into the politics, and then you're like, oh, God, we got to take control of our government.
I want to pull up this tweet from Nate Silver. He says, folks, it's not that hard. The left has moved to the left in the U.S., and the right has moved to the right.
What?
That's not true.
No.
Pew Research actually tracked. And I think they did this based on the language used by both parties.
Yes.
It is plain to see. The right has moved a little bit to the right. Okay, fine, fair point. The left has gone completely off the rails. So from where I'm standing, I can't even see where the left is. I'm like, what are they doing? I look over to my right and I'm like, oh, there's a guy who doesn't believe in gay marriage. I'm like, but that's recognizable to me. I disagree. But
Right.
I've seen that before.
The difference as a gay man, let me just tell you that. The difference was, in the past, if you weren't against gay marriage, that was fine. That was one thing. Now the left has to destroy you for that view. That's how, so the old left would just be like, give him a chance. It's not going to change your life. And now they're finding out where you work so they can tell your boss you're a homophobe. That's from a gay man's point of view, who looks at all this insanity and sees that. I've seen that change where you could just disagree. Like say, I don't think that, I think it's a traditional thing that, man and a woman, go have your civil unions. Fine. The liberal in the audience would be just like, oh, you should really think that over. Now the liberal in the audience gets on Twitter, tells them who you are, and has you fired. And that's how far the left have gone with these types of things. And you can pick any topic, and they'll do the same thing.
I do believe that the right has gone further right. It's just been banned off of social media because I had to administer these people on Minds. Like I saw them exodus from Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and they were very extreme.
Yeah, I think what's happened is and I hate to keep saying Trump all the time, but when he came along, an industry popped up where you had this disinformation and for some reason we had social media for years that didn't need fact checkers. CNN was from the 80s and didn't have a front and focal fact checker that needed to come out every 10 minutes, Dale, and tell you what was right. That's what the journalist was supposed to do. And I think what happened over the years was that the highlighting of these terrible things were amplified. And so an event occurred, there was 6 people, now there's white nationalism, and then Trump must like that, and then just like, if you're a conservative today, then you agreed that people should burn down the Capitol. I mean, that's where we are in your Discord these days. If you're conservative or you voted for Trump, then you think that the riots were fine. And
I want to point out another big issue in all of this too, and I have this Pew Research. Democrats and Republicans more ideologically divided than in the past. And we can see 94, 04, 2014. This is the chart that's often cited by many people. There's another one that updates it and it shows a later year, I think 2018. You can see in this chart at the very least that in the 90s, Democrats and Republicans overlapped greatly. In 2004, they did quite a bit. Republicans had a bit more. By 2014, the Democrats have moved much further left than the Republicans have moved to the right. You can see by looking down here at the bottom right. Now, the Democrats jumped, I think, like 3 or 4 points to the left, and the Republicans have moved like 1 or 2. Here's the fascinating thing. Nate Silver has another bit of data from Pew Research saying the exact opposite.
This killed me.
This shows the Democrats staying static and the Republicans going to the far right.
But Nate Silver also said Hillary was going to win, too.
Ooh.
So.
But these are both from Pew Research.
Yeah, right.
So what'll happen is Nate Silver chooses this and says, see, the Republicans went far right. And then what did we just cite a moment ago? I cited the data saying the opposite. So I throw this in the garbage. I'll tell you this. The only real change I've had in my politics is gun rights.
Right.
I used to be kind of middle of the road, like, maybe there could be some gun control. And now I'm like, no gun control. Everybody gets 50 BMGs.
Mine is
everything else
health.
is basically the same.
Mine's social medicine. I used to be all about it, but now I see these people that just eat crappy food and refuse to stop. I'm not going to pay for them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no one with any sense can take a chart like that seriously. It's just something that left-wing people believe in because they buy into all the hate hoaxes they hear from the media, and they genuinely believe that America has become a fascist country because Donald Trump was elected fairly in 2016. We did a video about this for Freedom Tunes where we debunked a similar analysis that Carlos Maza was using. And so we sort of went through it and pulled it apart. But in order to get figures like this, and the one that we debunked specifically, which I'm sure uses a similar methodology, basically put Obama and Harry Truman on the same level with respect to how far to the left they were. Anyone who knows anything about history or either of those men will tell you that that's absolutely ridiculous. And you mentioned earlier that Obama is on the right, technically speaking, or according to the analysis you brought up earlier. He was the most far left president we had ever had up until the point when he was elected.
He campaigned on universal health care. A dramatic and complete overhaul of our healthcare system to the left. That was substantial.
And as a senator in Illinois, he voted against the Born Alive Act, which would prevent you from being able to kill the child after they were born if the abortion failed.
Let me address this tweet from Sawyer Hackett, who responded to Nate Silver. Sawyer is a blue check host of Our America podcast, and he says, the left, healthcare should be free, I think. The right, Washington is run by a cabal of child trafficking pedos, and we should violently overthrow. Both sides, am I right? Well, let's break this down. The left is some people who think healthcare should be free, but would that include me? Well, I just said I think we should have universal basic health care. I say that all the time. No, it doesn't include me. I also don't think Washington is run by a cabal of child trafficking, whatever. I think that's just corrupt people doing corrupt things. I do think people like Epstein have a strange amount of influence among powerful global elites, but that's a fact. So what is he really referring to? What they're doing is either they're completely blind or they lie as a means to an end. Yeah. When they say by any means necessary, when they smash windows, when they kill, when they lie, cheat, and steal, and then they look at a group of 800 or so people who violently rioted at the Capitol, and we sit here and say, that was wrong, they shouldn't have done that, and those who are violent will go to prison, they ignore that outright. When they lie and make up things about the Parental Rights and Education bill, this is the game they play. Now, there are people on the right who play a similar game for sure, but look, I'm approaching this from, I read different news sources. I use ground.news and look at the bias and ownership of these news outlets. They can show you if it's conglomerate, private interest. They can tell you if it's left-leaning or right-leaning. And what I find is that on the right, for whatever reason, someone like Ben Shapiro, one of the most prominent conservative personalities, whether or not people like him, he's very famous with one of the biggest podcasts in the country, the world. And he is a very moderate conservative guy. He's not far right. He's got your traditional conservative positions, and he bases his assessments on fact. On the left, you have people like Rachel Maddow, who for years said insane things about Russia. Cenk Uygur, who just called for intervention in Ukraine because he thinks Russians are waging this war because they want to kill gay people. You have people like Joy Reid, who didn't she claim that she got hacked?
Yes.
But did they debunk that?
No, she wasn't hacked. She had
Right.
written all these anti-gay, homophobic things, and then she was going to get investigated, and then that vanished. And
Lies.
Oh yeah.
Let me go through the. Should we go through the lies again? I mean, do we really have to keep doing this list? Of
We
all
only have
the
like an hour and a half
Covington kid?
left.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know if you can.
Kyle Rittenhouse. The Daily Beast has now been rated as caution, fake news. I'm adding the fake news part, but caution, very big violation of journalistic ethics by NewsGuard. And it's primarily because everything they report on Kyle Rittenhouse was wrong, and they refuse to correct it. That's the left. That is the establishment, and it is the people who are like, you've got these leftist personalities who are like, well, I don't like the Democrats, I'm on the left. But you all should vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a corrupt authoritarian, and these people supported him, so spare me. At the very least, I can explain Donald Trump. He's a bull rampaging through the ivory tower. Don't like him and the things he does, that's fine. He was a bull rampaging through the ivory tower. I could accept that, but I like some of his policies. They play this game where they're obtuse on purpose, or they're genuinely just broken people.
Well, they also in the media they'll just leave facts out, and they do. Look, the Covington kids. You can go down the list of things, and if you own the shop like they do, they're not going to report it. And they've lived through this whole existence where they're not used to being called out, and they, Roger Ailes said to me once about, and he's famously said to it in public that, there's 30 liberal sites and organizations on the left, and there's just us, and they lose their mind over us. And it's because they call Fox like the canary in the coal mine. So you notice if you've watched Fox, and God only knows I lived my life doing this for a living, which was, they've been talking about the border for months and months and months. And now all of a sudden you start to see this creep into CNN and Title 42 and what are we going to do? And you're like, if you've been watching Fox, you've heard about it since, last year when they were coming across the border. So the media has famously, when it comes to writing about the left or the right, they will pick it's the gay, the gay don't say gay bill. Nothing in the bill said gay. And yet if you looked at the headlines, they just copied and pasted, off they went. Just because, I've worked in newsrooms. It's a bunch of 20-year-old people afraid to not go on a date. And it's a bunch of old editors who are afraid to get yelled at on Twitter or...
Afraid to not go on a date?
Afraid that they won't, if you have a bunch,
right.
I've seen it in conservative newsrooms in DC where you still have young people who are quote unquote conservatives, but they are very in tune to what people are saying to them about them on Twitter because they have to live in this liberal city. And so it affects, what we're seeing with everything is fierce ability to come back at people. Like, you do and other people, you will say what you mean and not worry about it. Whereas you have so many people who are terrified because they see what happens to people. They get canceled. I mean, this Libs of TikTok comes out there and just basically just rewrites what people, not saying you didn't change it.
Just post the video.
Yeah, it's like Hillary's emails. Nothing in those emails were made up. That's what they said. Let people read them and these people are crazy. The libs of TikTok is a perfect example. She has 1 million followers now because of these people, but they were so threatened by but all it did was bring and take the filter out of the media. Because you think the media is going to go look at what people are saying about kids being taught this or that in school, because those are the facts.
Take a look at this story from 2019. When did Barack Obama become a Republican?
Oh, boy.
I don't know. How about this one from the Washington Post? November 22nd, 2019. Barack Obama, conservative. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when they're like, the right has moved to the right, and also Barack Obama, who's in favor of universal health care, is a conservative and Republican, y'all have lost the plot. I'm sorry. There's just not even a point to reading through this stuff at this point.
Well, but here's the thing. Barack Obama is not to the left as the niche far left ideology that like some 16-year-old on Twitter is posting about. Therefore, he's on the right.
Right.
I don't know. Right. I can't contribute because I don't know what the right and the left are anymore. Donald Trump was a liberal guy that ran for the Republican Party.
Tribe. It's tribe.
I guess so. And depending on where you're
Blue,
standing,
red, A,
your
B,
feelings,
up, down,
like
1, 2.
It's left.
I think it's
right
I think it's a community. I think people. But Trump was the guy. I said this before. When you were the boomer, me, or Gen X, yelling at the TV, he yelled back. For years, they would scream at the TV about immigration or something. And for once, a politician actually yelled back at them, and they heard them. Like somebody heard me yelling, and they went out in droves. I have friends up in Massachusetts who were staunch liberals who were like, you know what? I'm going to vote for him because I've seen Hillary, and I don't want that. But he speaks to me. Now, 10 years ago as a conservative, you'd be thrown out if you even a hint that you cheated on your wife. And now that's fine because people were so sick of being talked down to that, the flyover states and this and that he hit a nerve in people. And everyone, the people who voted for him remember him in the 80s. They weren't, they remember Ivanka. They remember that whole show of a mess that took place in his life. They knew it wasn't going to be pretty, but they wanted to blow that city up. And, it blew up the media, him, everyone around him, and, it changed America forever.
You mentioned some of the misdeeds in Trump's personal life. The left spent years telling us that we shouldn't care how a person conducts themselves in their private life. What we should care about are the policies they support, as if a political leader is just a set of policies and not a person who has to make moral decisions by the people that they're committed to. And then Trump comes along, and he absolutely did not follow the rules that I, as a Christian and many conservatives would say that a political leader should, but he didn't hate us. He didn't absolutely detest us like virtually every other political leader of my lifetime has. And so conservatives said, you know what, we'll take this guy. And the left went, but don't you care about his personal life?
Didn't he call Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig or something?
Yes, he called her a fat pig.
And everyone was laughing and screaming and cheering. In the
I
crowd.
mean, he said things that a lot of people thought, and it was... People, you're right. He's a billionaire who should look down from his tower, but for whatever reason, if you talk to these people, especially people I went to some of these events with him, and it was like a god showed up because it's a lot of people who spent a lot of years caring about the country and watching it tick away. And now he was flawed, and you can say what you want about him, but his heart was at least in the right place from their point of view. And,
we need the Americans want to be involved in the political process as they should be. And the presidents are representatives. So for a president to respond to you and allow themselves to be changed by your opinions, that's the point.
Well,
and I think he embodied that.
And that's why a lot of people really liked Donald Trump.
And I also want to mention this on the point of his personal life and his private life. It's not as if we just had this abundance of very well-conducted moral people to choose from for president of the United States. Like, you didn't have the most moral person who had ever lived running next to Donald Trump.
Hillary
it was Trump
Clinton.
versus Hillary Clinton.
Right,
and then in the Republican primaries, it was like Trump versus a bunch of swamp creatures.
Right.
Jeb Bush.
For the most part, not all of them. But
when I saw Hillary in 2016, I just laughed. I was like, you think I'm going to vote for that? You're insane.
That's so nuts.
This lady was like warmonger of warmongers. But the first female president. Oh.
And you know what? She doesn't believe all women. If you remember Monica Lewinsky.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.